who has been caught in the act of adultery. Yeah. And the Pharisees saw this as a great opportunity to try to trip Jesus up. You see, they knew that they had to be careful with how they handled him because he had the heart of the people. Yeah. Yeah. So they bring him this woman in the middle of the gathering of the saints, and they said, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now, Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned, but what sayest thou? You see, some of us have been so misinformed to the point that we actually believe that the things that we go through are about us. We attribute our biggest and most complex oppositions to be centered around a hater. I too have been misinformed with this concept for the past 26 years of my life. I know it sounds wonderful to think that we are really that special. But it's so hard for me to believe that the omniscient God, one who has no measure in his wisdom, one whose knowledge is infinite and it travels through the portals of time with no beginning and no end. It's hard for me to believe that the omnipresent one, one whose presence can sit over the city of New York and then hover over the city of Rome on the Italian peninsula and then travel down the Nile River all at the same time, would be so minimalistic and trivial in his strategic planning of our lives that he would center the things that we encounter around a hater. And so I've been authorized as an agent of this great gospel by the one who sent me to do some correction to this concept. I'm so sorry that I have to be the bearer of bad news, but I've come to inform you that what you're going through is not about you. Please help me to spread the message and tell a few people around you it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you. Some of y'all don't believe me, so let me put his word on it. Just like it's not about you, this story was not about this woman. If in fact in the text, this story was really about this woman, then once the speculation concerning her was no longer a rumor, once it was no longer buzz that she was sleeping around with someone else's husband, or better yet that she was sleeping with someone other than her husband, and she was caught red-handed, why then would they bring her to Jesus? I believe that if it was really about her and if the intent was really to kill her, then they would have simply had her handed over to the aristocracy or to the Caesar or to the government officials of that time, and they would have had her persecuted to the highest extent of the law, which was to be stoned unto death. But the 6th verse of the 8th chapter of John declared, this they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. It was unfortunate for this woman that she was strategically moved as a chess pawn. But anyone who knows the basics about chess knows that while the 15 other pieces overall are needed in order to finish out the game, that the objective is to checkmate and capture the king. This woman was a piece to a game with much bigger players than she was, but she was exposed, but the objective was to really to capture King Jesus. The objective was to test his response concerning her. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, this is not your test. The things that you've been going through in your life, it's not about your haters. It's not about who wants to take you out. If that was the intent, you would have been taken out a long time ago. But you're operating with much bigger players. And the enemy, the adversary, the devil, has exposed some things in your life. He's exposed how broke you are. He's exposed how fragile you are. He's exposed how messy you can get. He's exposed how many flaws you have. But the real intent is to see how Jesus is going to respond on your behalf. This is a test of Jesus' response. What is he going to say? How is he going to move? How in the world is he going to get you out of this? But what I really love is what happens next in the text. Jesus the king, Jesus the strategist, doesn't say a word, but he begins to write on the ground. Now, I'm a lover of good writing, whether it be in the form of a novel or if it transitions onto the projected screen. And I specifically have a love for implicit writers. Implicit writers are writers who are not matter of fact in their dialogue or direct with the messages that they are trying to convey. But the strategies of these writers is to get the onlooker to receive the intended message through an indirect route, or better yet, through words unspoken. An even better writer, in my opinion, takes advantage of using a literary device called a cliffhanger. A cliffhanger is a plot device which features a main character in a difficult dilemma, or characters are confronted with a shocking revelation at the end of an episode or serialized fiction. This device produces an unsuspecting or unpredictable ending. The intent of this strategy is to ensure that the audience will return to see how the characters resolve the dilemma. And because of this intention, the conclusion of these stories never say the end. But before the credit rolls, or when you get to the final page, it will say ... to be continued. So Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, begins to write on the ground. And not knowing what the author had up his sleeve, the Pharisees and the scribes continued badgering Jesus, thinking that he would be predictable. They continued questioning him. What do you say? What are you going to do? How are you going to handle her? Jesus, should we kill her? You see, the enemy has been badgering God concerning you. He's presented God with your facts. And he's saying, God, you call her anointed. And he's saying, God, you say he's got favor. You told everybody that he's containing a great gift, and that you're going to make their name great. But here they are with issues in their flesh. Here they are with issues in their character. So what are you going to do with them? How are you going to handle them? Are you going to throw them away? Are you going to give them what they deserve? And here in the text, John is not careful to provide us with the details of Jesus' manuscript. He is not careful to provide us with the writings on the ground. But reading this particular story up until this point, the direct route would lead us to one suspecting ending for this woman, and that should be death. But Jesus, the implicit writer, Jesus, the indirect writer, he throws a cliffhanger in the story. And when the word should have said the end, Jesus said to be continued. God, I don't know what you wrote in the ground concerning this woman, but just like her, I've been guilty of some things. I went right when you told me to go left. I went north when you told me to go east. And now the things that I've done have been exposed. And one thing is for sure, is that I'm guilty. I'm guilty of taking advantage of your grace. I'm guilty of mishandling your love. I'm guilty of indulging in lust. And there is no doubt what the end should be. But knowing the great writer that you are, I know that as long as you keep on writing, that there will be a continuation to my story. If the enemy would have had his way, he would have destroyed you a long time ago. And just like Ray Rice, if God was to leak the media storage of heaven and let you get a glimpse of the things that I thought I was doing in private, then there would be no doubt that I will be suspended from this contract to preach the word of God indefinitely. I would have been suspended from the privileges of this Christian faith forever. But Jesus saved my life when he began to write. God, we've been guilty of asking for a lot of things, but today all we ask is that you keep on writing. Keep on writing, Jesus. And here at the 11th verse, and this is how the story should have ended. It should have said, and the woman was stoned until she had no more breath in her body. It should have said, and the woman was destroyed because of her love.